Okay, testing. Jihad, jihad. Maybe this will work this time. I doubt it. Further back, better, closer. I don't know. Okay. I don't know. It seems like it ought to be tilted more. Okay, here's a report on. I've been watching the debates and they don't sound very good. Sanders lost a lot of his steam he had before, and he's lost. I don't think his debating ability is quite what it was when he ran for president the other time, and he's lost a lot of his electricity. But anyway, he's still doing better than Trump. I think, but I've noticed that people aren't striking out at Trump very well. They're missing things, and no one's really succeeded in tearing down his platform or giving out the discrepancy of what he's not doing that he should be. And so the first thing, I guess, was they're not driving home. And Trump is about Ross Perot times a half, where Ross Perot, I think, is quite a bit better candidate than Donald Trump. But Trump he's overlapped him pretty good, but he's missing a lot. And if a candidate wanted to get in and outdo Trump, they need to say give the discrepancy between him and Ross Perot. That'd be the first thing. And also, I want to go back to the '60s, where basically we had, a standard of living was a lot higher. And what the best way, and I always use a common sense approach, the best way to tell what's wrong with something is to take a time when it was right and then look at the differences. It's like a correction key. You know how they have the correction key like at college, and they have a multiple choice test, and they have all the holes cut out. And the way they grade the papers, they put it down if there's not a black mark where the hole is, it's wrong. You kind of do that very same thing here. You try to look at what's going on now and what was going on then, and try to find the discrepancy between the two. Okay, I was watching this. They have an anniversary show about the space program, where Kennedy was talking. It's the anniversary, of the moon landing or something. They're talking about the space program, why we did it, why we got into it, the space race and all that. And I think they made a big blunder because they told the public basically what the ratio of money was, and they had how much the space program cost then, and in those same dollars what it would be now, and it was about 7 times. I thought they shouldn't reveal that, because what does that do? That lets everybody know how ripped off they are with their jobs. Okay, so they talk about raising the minimum wage. Well, actually, if you took that same ratio in 1962, the working class all made $95,000 a year. Everybody. Nobody was on minimum wage. And most of the working class people, they had their house, they made their house payments, they had their cars, and only one person worked. If 2 people worked, they lived in the rich side of town because they had 2 salaries, both $95,000, $190,000 a year. That's what it'd be in today's dollars. And no one was on minimum wage. And minimum wage, if it was the same thing as it was back then, and I did the math, it comes to $16 an hour. It doesn't matter because nobody was on it back then. Everybody had factory jobs. So basically what this means, and there's 2 reasons, and what I understand and what I've looked at, the 2 things we don't have now that we had in 1962 that's caused the problem is the campaign finance corruption, the gerrymandering, and the revolving door. And the other thing is trade union strength. And it's the campaign finance system that knocked off the trade unions. So basically, if you look at the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, every person deserves what they had, because one man, one vote is how we were able to have $190,000 a year, 40 or 95,000 a year. with a one man, one vote. So basically we've been ripped off by the campaign finance system. It's basically been stolen. It's just like when you're delivering pizza for Domino's and you go up to the house and they hold a $100 bill and you give them the change and then you ask for the 100 and I gave it to you already. Basically that's exactly what's happened with our government. It's really been stolen from us. Because with the trade union strength we'd have, okay, well now, when Trump gets in there and he argues how good everything is, okay, things aren't so good. Look, we've got Seattle, we have 10 cities, we've got 10 cities in San Francisco, we've got 10 cities in Los Angeles, and basically Tennessee's a mess, and so is Kentucky. Tennessee, there's no jobs anywhere except Nashville, and everybody's moved into Nashville. What does that do? Raise, supply and demand. The rent goes up. The rent's gone up to about $850, and then it was $500 2 years ago. So because of all this there's a mass influx into Nashville. So Tennessee and Kentucky, both of them are a mess, and they weren't back in '99. So basically, unless we have $95,000 a year, Trump work is not finished. And when he started knocking Cummings, Cummings is talking about Baltimore, what Cummings needs to do, and I really don't like Cummings too well. He's not fair to Trump. He lies about him. He doesn't like him. And he lies about him being a Nixon and all that, which is, not fair, except that if Cummings wanted to come back at Trump, what he needs to do is tell him the reason Baltimore is a mess, the reason though many people left, is because of the campaign finance system and the way it destroyed trade unions. Okay, now what has he done about the campaign finance system? He's put 2 people in the Supreme Court that support corruption, and he hasn't done anything about the trade union strength, and that's what caused the problem. And if he's not doing anything about it, he's not doing his job, and Cummings need to come back and complain on that. And the other thing, another point I'd like to make too, though, about the strikes. Back a long time ago, you had trade union strikes. And my dad worked at Boeing, and so you had people that in the engineering, they didn't belong to the union, and they made about twice the money. They made about $190,000 a year in today's dollars, $190,000 a year. With what I could buy, with a house I could buy, so on and so on. Well, they complain on the trade unions all the time. They didn't belong to them. They looked down, frowned on them and all that. But what my dad's engineering friends did not realize is that when we lost trade union strength, not only did the tool and die makers lose their jobs, but the engineer's salary been about half what it was. And like I say, in 1962, the engineer that had been there had a farm, had 3 farms, 2 airplanes, 2 cars, and a house, and a $30,000, which would be $30,000 times 7, $210,000 house. What would be 210 right now, or probably a little higher than that. So what happened was the trade union strength is what everything moved down. Without the tool and die makers, everybody's salaries went down. So basically they lost money, and they should be, supporting trade unions, obviously. That's one thing no one knew until now. But okay, then let's see, the border. Let's see. Okay, Jerry Brown brought this out in 1988 on the Phil Donahue show, and people aren't getting it yet. And Joe Biden had a speech a while back and talked about trade unions. And he also talked about the salary, which, people say they're on salary. Well, what they should have been saying was they're on rip-off, because basically it means they don't pay overtime. And so that trade unions had something to do with that. Well, Joe Biden, but one thing, it was on Fox News, and I never saw it on ABC or any of the corporate-owned media at all, this report Biden had. So, but he should have been concerned about that. He wanted to get the message out that it wasn't in the media, and he hasn't given any way to shut up the media, to get the corporates out of it, so you can have, free media again. And he hasn't. How's he going to get trade union strength back with the campaign finance system the way it is, without trying to circumvent it in one way or another? And he hasn't done that. And okay, ways to circumvent it, I haven't heard a word about it. And it's the problem Sanders has with the AMA, and it's what Trump has with catch and release. The campaign finance system sees up Congress, so you can't do anything. That's why you don't have catch and release. Well, Biden didn't bring that out either, and none of them in the debate brought that out. I didn't hear any of them. And Sanders came close to anybody else. I will say that I heard Bernie Sanders say that he brought out that in '62 we had affordable health care, which I never heard him say before. And he talked about having affordable health care in Canada and everywhere else, Canada and Europe. And also back in '62 we had it. And so Sanders pretty good on that. And Sanders brought out that he was going to use deliberation between several countries for the peace in the Mideast. That's what Kissinger did. That's the way he handled it. Nixon's one of the best presidents we've ever had, and Kissinger was one of the best with foreign policy we've ever had. So Sanders sounded real good on that. Also, they brought out that the way to handle the problem with borders is to go down to Guatemala and Mexico and try to put money into it and try to build it up and help get together with them, the leaders, and solve the problem there, which to me that's the way to handle it. And so of course Sanders on that. Sanders is the only one that sounds like he knows what he's talking about, and pretty much everyone else, Kamala, or one of them had Tulsi Gabbard was pretty good tonight, but they're the only ones, I think. Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, the only two I heard, I think, would know what they're doing. All right, let's see, what else? Okay, and I also brought out, I was thinking about the debate, what I would have said to people. Kamala and Biden were arguing. If I'd been Biden, what I would have said to Kamala Harris, Kamala's bringing Biden down. And he'd bring him down the polls, and so Biden wanted to fight back. But what he should have told Kamala Harris is that the responsibility of the Democrat Party is to fix the broken system. And she's taking money from the Time Warner Corporation, and apparently she's not quite honest as she ought to be. She's taking money from the Time Warner Corporation, and what that drives wages down. And your job as the Democrat is to have the working class so they can raise wages so they can feed their family. So and when Time Warner profits off of cheap labor, and they give her money, campaign money, and she goes back and then basically rips off the working class by leaving the borders open and not fighting for when 97% wants border control, border security, or 78%, one poll, 97 in another one. Biden should have attacked her on that, and then she came back, and she could have come back with Biden tonight. I noticed that he's arguing about the health care, it costs too much. Okay, well, here's the deal. And Juan brought this out on Fox News. Basically, what you need to do there, if you have the $1 trillion debt for health care, what happens? Congress tries to balance the budget, and Biden kept arguing, we can't do that. It costs too much. And she kept arguing, yeah, but your plan leaves everybody out. Okay, her plan's the better one, and she's the smarter one right there. And Biden is, business as usual, establishment, and he's pretty much, what I heard tonight, he's establishment. The problem is that the medical system, the AMA, is full of corruption, the campaign finance system, the prices are unrealistic, they're way out the roof, and the prices should be driven down. They aren't fair. They aren't real prices. They're just whatever they want to make them because of the campaign finance corruption. And that takes too long to explain it all, but what they need to do, if Kamala Harris had a $1 trillion plan, let's say she had a $1 trillion plan, which is way out the roof, Congress is always seized up with campaign money. What would happen if they got to balance the budget and you got a $1 trillion plan? What's going to happen? They're going to have to get that down. They're going to have to get that medical cost down, and they won't have any choice, because if you got a $1 trillion debt like she's talking about, that's going to supersede the campaign money, and all they have to do is get in there and quit letting the AMA screw the country. That's all they got with the campaign money. That's going to supersede the campaign money, and that's what Biden wasn't smart enough to get, and Kamala Harris didn't bring it out either, neither one of them. She came closer than he did. But what happens? Where's all the money going? Well, it's because of the trial lawyer lobby and tort law. Tort reform. You can't get it because of the campaign finance system. You could get it if you had a $1 trillion debt right in your face, and they have to balance the budget, they'd get it down. It would supersede the campaign money. They tell them where to stick their campaign money. And then you have, what else? You had $3,000 to take an ambulance from Kearney to Denver. You know, that's way out the roof. That needs to be fixed. And the campaign finance corruption is why that's so high, and Congress won't shut it down. You stop the mergers between hospitals, and the corruption with the hospitals and the doctors and overcharging, you know, and $80 for an aspirin, so on and so on. And you get trademarks, get rid of the trademarks on copyrights on drugs, and you get non-traditional treatments, and all that compete with it, and bring Canadian drugs in here, which Sanders was talking about, Trump was talking about this week. But all those things would get done, and you'd get rid of that cost if they had a great big huge debt, the $1 trillion debt like she brought out, and Kamala Harris, and Biden went right over Biden's head, and he's down like just establishment, business, government as usual. You don't want him in there. So Kamala Harris won that round pretty good, but she didn't she didn't finish it. And what are other costs that they have with the AMA? You have the pharmaceutical, the insurance industry, they overcharge, they make billions of dollars. I mean, all these things could be stopped by Congress if the campaign money, if the debt superseded the pressure on them, superseded the campaign money. And every man, woman, child knew about the corruption, and there was enough knowledge and awareness of the public that, you know, that it was corrupt. They get those costs down. And that's what Juan brought out at one of those discussions they had on the 5 on Fox, and it went right over Waters' head. Okay, the other thing I was going to say, what else? I heard that argument tonight, and that's one thing I thought should have been driven home. All right. Okay, another thing I was going to talk about, I thought about doing a thing where, you know, my hypothetical run for president and doing a platform like, let's see, Buttigieg had a platform, and he gave it out, and we had, well, one thing, with student loans, allow people to negotiate the interest rate, which I don't support that. I want, you know, to get rid of them, because we've been, you know, screwed over by the government, really. But that's another, yeah, as Phil Donnie always said, another show. But anyway, but yeah, on his platform he talked about the LGBT, and he said the Green New Deal and the student loan and a bunch of other stuff. I thought, well, I'm going to come out with my platform, and if I can find it here. The first one I had McDonald's on the top of Mount Everest. You had, well, even a mall maybe, or Burger King and several other things, because you have a big old mob up there, 3,000 people. It's about time they put a mall or something up there. So we got to deal with Tibet or Nepal, you know, China, whoever is in charge of that, and get a McDonald's on the top of Mount Everest. The second thing I had, I thought we should have high-speed rail. Where is that one? Yeah, there it is. High-speed rail between New York and Washington, D.C. You know, they talk about the boondoggle in California. I don't think they looked into that real well. I think there's more to that boondoggle. You know, I know for one thing, they tried to get a monorail through Seattle when you had a terrible traffic jam, like the old train in Chicago. They couldn't get it because the asphalt paving lobby stopped it. You know, I don't know what lobbies stopped the one in California. I don't know, but that needs to be looked into. And the other thing, they're stopping the production of the Tesla everywhere, or not production, but sales of it everywhere. And the lobbyists come in from out of state and bring campaign money. They don't even live in Kansas or Nebraska or whatever state they go in. They keep the sales of it out of there. So they're probably the same thing with the high-speed rail. And you can't tell me high-speed rail wouldn't be profitable between New York and LA. I'll bet the airline lobby probably doesn't want it. I don't know. But anytime you have more high technology, the more high technology you have, a lot of times you export it, and that means the ratio of imports and exports are the best way to increase, you know, wealth in a country. Okay, and let's see, free media. Nobody brought out, none of the candidates said anything about a free media. What I would do is have a show on PBS. And I'd have a committee of, you know, a whole bunch of different people on PBS, and that, you know, to deal with the corruption in the country. And that would be people that are known for fighting corruption, like Michael Moore would be one. I'd have Michael Moore, Sam Donaldson, Jill Stein, I had a whole list of them. I can't find the list, but I think it's here. Jill Stein. Let's see, I can't remember the rest of them. But anyway, Ralph Nader, Jesse Ventura, people that are known for stopping corruption and support it, know how to fix. People that know how to fix the system, know what's wrong, and know how to fix it. Jill Stein, one of the best ones. And but anyway, that's something they need to do. They haven't done. And here, let's see, balance budget. The way you balance the budget, you get rid of corporate welfare. That's the first thing. You stop some of the wars. That helps. What they need to do is put big taxes, super high tax that runs the company bankrupt if they go overseas, and get rid of the corporate tax, eliminate it completely if they stay here, but a very high tax on the ones going overseas, the point almost drives them bankrupt. You'd balance the budget with that, and then do what Eisenhower and Nixon did on the wealthy, very same thing they had, where no loopholes over so many $1 million a year, no loopholes. Get rid of that. But you can't do that without getting campaign finance reform or circumventing the campaign finance system. Okay, and what was the other one I had? The monorails everywhere. Monorails in every city where you have traffic jams, that's been stopped by the lobbies. The lobbies stop them. Limited Green New Deal. Let's see. Oh yeah, Limited Green New Deal. What I do there is like half and half. You have make everything more accessible for solar-powered houses, solar power, but not necessarily no mandates where they have to have so many in such an amount of time. Instead, you just make electric cars more accessible to everybody and make it easy to charge them up and all that, and tax breaks if you have solar power, things like that. And I guess that's all I'm going to do right now, and thanks for watching.